Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Before we begin today's Hindu analysis, an important announcement. Tomorrow's class in the ongoing Target Prelims 2022 Crash Course series will be on international relations. This is class number 2 of IR. Do attend this class 7:30 p.m. sharp at our YouTube channel of BYJU'S IAS. As you know, this ongoing crash course is where we are discussing with you current affairs of 365 days and also some important topics which are in the news even before that. We have already covered the entire syllabus for polity, economics, geography, environment, science and tech, and almost everything that you need to cover for your prelims examination. Do join in for tomorrow's class at 7:30 p.m. and subscribe to the YouTube channel of BYJU'S IAS. Now let's begin today's analysis with the first article that focuses on the divide between the north and south of India. The author here is saying that we have been delaying the delimitation of the Lok Sabha seats for many decades now. And the reason being that if we divide the seats now in Lok Sabha on the basis of population, we will see that in North India, especially states such as UP and Bihar, because of the increasing population, they would have a lot more seats as compared to the other states which have stabilized their population, such as Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, etc. And that is why successive governments have been trying to delay this delimitation. However, now is the time that we should take a serious look at it. As you know, the Lok Sabha seats have been frozen till 2026. The next census that comes after 2026 would be 2031, when the Lok Sabha seats are due to be delimited again based on the change in the population pattern as has happened across the country. The author here is saying that if you look at the history of India, in the past 100 or even more years, we have seen how there has been a divide between the north and south of India. Some of the reasons include the fact that the capital city has been in the north part of India. Most of the important political institutions, etc., have always been in North India. And that is why even the biggest leaders of South India would have to travel all the way to the north in order to attend those meetings, which have created kind of a divide between the north and the south. And if we go ahead with the delimitation in the current pattern, this would increase the divide even further because we would be punishing the southern states for controlling their population. We would be punishing the southern states who made special efforts to stabilize their population. On the other hand, the northern states such as UP, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, although they did not take steps to control their population growth, would still be rewarded for this. And that is why we need to have a good plan of how to go about the delimitation. Now, the one option that the government has is government can again freeze this exercise. This government can also say that we will keep on continuing with the same number of seats till one more decade or two more decades. However, that would be injustice to the people of India. Because for a size that India has in terms of population, the number of members in the Lok Sabha are very, very low. That means that one vote in a lesser population state, let's say Sikkim, Goa, or even states such as Himachal Pradesh, would amount for much more as compared to one vote in high population states of UP, Maharashtra, etc. So we cannot just keep on going ahead with this. The second idea, as per the author here, is to adopt kind of a Cambridge compromise formula which has been seen in the European Council. Now, as you would know, under the EU, there is a European Council which acts as a European Parliament that has representation from each and every member of the European Union. Now, in the EU itself, you would see that the countries are of different size. So, Germany has much higher population as compared to countries, let's say Cyprus or Malta, etc. So, over there also, it is a problem of how many seats have to be given in the European Parliament to each and every nation. They have come out with a formula called the Cambridge Compromise. In simple terms, what happens in Cambridge Compromise is that certain minimum number of seats are given to each and every country. So even the smallest of the country has certain fixed number of seats given to it. Out of the remaining seats are then divided on the basis of the population. So yes, Germany, by the virtue of having a higher population, would obviously have more seats as compared to lesser population nations. But it is not like the lesser population nations have only one or two seats. Even the smaller states have been given certain minimum number of seats, and that is how they have been given the safeguard. These are the two options going ahead for the government of India right now as per the author. As you know, the number of seats in the Lok Sabha have still been frozen at the 1971 level. They were first frozen to be increased in 2001, and then again they were frozen to be increased in 2026. And now we are approaching 2026, and that is why this question has become relevant for the author and for this particular article. The author here says that some states like UP, Maharashtra, Bihar, West Bengal, and Madhya Pradesh together make up 48.6% of our total population. If you look at the time since the family planning program began in India in the 1970s, since then, states such as Kerala, Tamil Nadu have stabilized their population. So the proportion of their population as compared to the country's population has reduced. On the other hand, in UP and Bihar, it is the opposite. So we cannot punish states such as Kerala and Tamil Nadu for doing a good job, and that is why we have this problem at our hands right now. Now, I want to highlight this problem in terms of certain graphs so that you understand what the author is trying to say here. In this graph, we see a comparison between UP and Tamil Nadu. Per constituency, that is the average number of people that a member of parliament represents. In UP, it is close to 30 lakh. So, if a member of parliament is representing UP in Lok Sabha, that member is representing close to 30 lakh people. Similarly, if there is a member of parliament in Lok Sabha from Tamil Nadu, he would be representing only 18 lakh people. So see the disparity that we have between these two states. I'll give you one more graph. See here. These are the top 10 countries around the world in terms of how many people do their members of parliament represent. As you can see, in India, on an average, a member of parliament represents 25 lakh people. The second in terms of this number is the US, where this average is close to only 6 lakh people. Countries such as Pakistan, Nigeria, Indonesia, Bangladesh, these all highly populated nations are much below India. Again, as you can see, the number of people in India's Lok Sabha are much lower as compared to what they should be if you take the world average of these nations across the world. There is no nation which has even half of India's proportion in this number. And it is not even that India has the largest lower house in the world. Let's look at this data. Countries such as Indonesia, France, Germany, Italy, and even UK, which have a fraction of India's population, have more members in their lower house as compared to India. That is why there is a lot of scope of India increasing the number of members in its lower house. And the last graph that I have for you in this series is this. This graph tells you that in 2026, if we divide the number of seats in the states on the basis of their population without any exception, as per the population growth numbers that we project by 2026, this would be the result. UP would have 143 seats. On the other hand, Bihar would have 79 seats, Maharashtra 76, Rajasthan 50, West Bengal 60. Now look at those states that have curtailed their population. Kerala only 20, Tamil Nadu only 49. So again, in this way, you are punishing these states that did a good job. Since this is an older graph, that is why the state of Jammu and Kashmir has been shown here as one and not being divided into Jammu and Kashmir or Ladakh. That is why the problem at our hand is real and we need to have a serious discussion with regards to this. The next article that we have here is about the US and the Supreme Court draft in the US that was leaked, in which the Supreme Court judges are about to strike down the Roe versus Wade judgment. We had discussed this earlier as well, that in the US a draft has leaked from the Supreme Court, according to which the judges in the Supreme Court by a majority vote will now strike down the Roe versus Wade judgment, meaning that abortion would be made illegal in the US from now onwards. In other words, after the judgment, what will happen is that individual states across the US will now be able to decide whether or not they want to allow abortion or not. Now, in the US, since there are only two main political parties, everyone is very clear about where these parties stand. So, the Democratic Party, which is more liberal, is in favor of abortion. They are the party who favor the right to choice. On the other hand, the opposition party, that is a Republican Party, to which Donald Trump also belongs, they are not in favor of abortion. For them, They believe that right to life is much bigger as compared to the right to choice. That means every state which is now being ruled by the Republican Party now will have the option to ban abortion once again. The states which are ruled by the Democrats will continue to allow abortion. This is what will happen after this judgment. Comparatively, right now in the entire country, because of the Supreme Court judgment of Roe versus Wade, abortions were allowed throughout the country, and the states did not really have the power to overrule that. Now, this power is being given back to the states. The author here is making a point that if we go by the reasoning of this judgment, that means in the coming years, all the other civil rights given to the people in the US, be it the rights of lesbians and gay, be it the right of other transgender people, all of that would be in danger now. Why? As per the draft that has leaked from the Supreme Court of the US, the Supreme Court judges have talked about the original constitution. The draft says that the original constitution has made no mention of abortion. Not just this, the constitution also does not say that abortion is a part of right to privacy. Now the problem is, if you interpret all these laws that we have today on the basis of what the original constitution was, then obviously you will be in a position to take away the rights given to gays, lesbians, etc. For example, we say that the Indian constitution is a living document. That means it evolves with time. With changing times, the needs and the requirements of the societies also change, and that is how new laws and amendments are introduced. But in the US, the Supreme Court has rejected this argument. They have based their argument on the basis of the original constitution and said that the original constitution does not make mention of these things, that is why we will not allow it. Now, the US Supreme Court is very unique in the sense of how the judges are elected and how does it work. So, in the US Supreme Court, there are 9 judges. The interesting part is in the US Supreme Court, there is no retirement age, meaning that once you become a Supreme Court judge, you will be a judge for life unless you yourself want to retire or resign. Otherwise, you will be a judge for life. Now, what happens is the US Supreme Court judges are appointed by the US President. So, for example, let's say right now, Joe Biden is the US President. He is from the Democratic Party. Just in case one of the seats of the Supreme Court become vacant, maybe by the virtue of death or by the virtue of resignation, then Joe Biden as the US President would then appoint the next Supreme Court judge. Obviously, when he is appointing a judge or the Democratic Party is appointing a judge, they will appoint a judge who favors their ideology, who favors their thinking. On the other hand, if the Republican president is in power, they would like to appoint a judge with their ideology. So it is very, very clear to everyone that out of the 9 judges of the Supreme Court, who are the ones who favor the ideology of the Democratic Party that is more liberal, and who are the ones who favor the ideology of the Republican Party that is more orthodox. As of now, in the Supreme Court, majority of the judges are those who were appointed by the Republican presidents. So Republican president or the Republican ideology right now is in the majority in the Supreme Court, and that is why everyone knew that this will happen someday or the other. Because the Republican Party for many, many years has been saying that abortion should not be allowed, it is against the right to life, and now that their judges are in the majority in the Supreme Court, this will happen very, very soon, which is a dangerous sign for the times to come in the US. Now, although we have had a discussion about this particular law with respect to India as well, there are quite a lot of infographics that have been released by the Indian Express today, which actually give you a lot of information about the pregnancy and abortion laws in India. This is the first one. As we know, in India, pregnancy is allowed in certain cases up to 24 weeks. It is usual to get pregnancy up to 20 weeks, but in certain cases between 20 and 24 weeks also pregnancy is allowed in India. As per this study, 78% of abortions are carried out at a stage of less than 10 weeks. 91% are carried out at the stage of less than 13 weeks. 98% of all the abortions are carried out in the stage of less than 20 weeks. So only 2% of the abortions are carried out between 20 and 24 weeks because these are only allowed under certain special circumstances. There is also one very interesting data here. This data compares the performance of developing and the developed nations in terms of planned births, abortions, etc. Now look at one very interesting point here. In the developed nations, the number of planned births are much more as compared to the number of planned births in developing nations. Meaning that in developing nations, in poor nations, a lot of times, even when the couples are not planning to have a child, they still conceive a child. Meaning that when it comes to high income societies, the number of planned births are much higher. The number of miscarriages are much lower because they have much better facilities at their end. This is the situation of abortion laws across the world. There are some nations which have prohibited abortion altogether. Then there are some where abortions are allowed just to save the women's life. Then there are some nations that will allow abortion to preserve the health of the women even if the life is not in danger. And then there are some liberal nations where abortions are allowed on request. These include Australia, as you can see here, US, Canada, etc. For India, we fall in this category of broad social or economic grounds on the basis of which abortion is allowed in India. We discussed this topic in one of the earlier CNAs also about how the Medical Pregnancy Termination Act in India actually works. One other point of view here with respect to US is that the number of women who would like to go for abortion or who want abortion are much more amongst the poor families as compared to other. It is in the poorer families where the women are much more concerned about whether or not they can afford to have a child, about whether or not they can afford to take an off from work. And that is why if you ban abortion, this is a kind of a judgment that will negatively impact the poorer women much more as compared to those who come from financially better families. That is why it is a big concern, especially amongst the poor community in the US. The next article that we have here is about the confusion that still exists in the NRC, that is the National Register of Citizens in Assam. Now, this is an old topic, and I'm sure all of you are well aware of the details of the NRC. Just to refresh our memory, the NRC is a very old exercise that started in 1951 itself. All the states in the country were asked to compile an NRC, that is the National Register of Citizens. Now, what was the need? The need was that even after independence, for the first few years, a lot of people from India were going to Pakistan, and from Pakistan they were coming to India. Because of this ongoing migration of people, there was a lot of confusion amongst the government authorities as to who are the citizens of India and who are not officially citizens of India. To maintain a list of the official citizens of India, this compilation called the NRC was mandated from all the states including Assam. Now we are focusing specially on Assam because this current controversy is with regards to the state of Assam only. As you know, even before Bangladesh came into being, the Pakistan military, through its innumerable operations such as Operation Searchlight, had been killing a lot of people in Bangladesh. That was East Pakistan at that time. That is why thousands and lakhs of people illegally migrated from Bangladesh to India. Many of these settled in different parts of the country, including Assam. In Assam specifically, there was an agitation under which local people of Assam wanted these illegal immigrants to go out of Assam because they thought that they're eating up our jobs, they're eating up our resources, and we want them outside. They wanted the Assamese resources for the people of Assam only. This entire agitation took place between 1979 and 1985, which led to the signing of the Assam Accord between the central government and the leaders of this Assam agitation. Under this accord, it was decided that whoever entered India from Bangladesh after March 24, 1971 would be considered as an illegal immigrant and that person would be sent back. The people who came to Assam before this date would still be allowed. Now, how do we decide who are the people who came before this date or after this date? We will use the data of 1951 NRC, and also we will use other documents such as a voter list, etc. of those years. That is why it was decided that this NRC of 1951 will have to be updated. The Supreme Court in fact gave this order in 2014 to update the NRC in Assam specifically. Now, when this NRC was updated and the report came out, it was found out that out of the 3.3 crore people who applied to be a part of the NRC, about 19 lakh people could not prove their citizenship. So about 19 lakh people were considered to be illegal immigrants in Assam. Now this is where the controversy begins. Because what is happening is these 19 lakh people are now going to the foreigners tribunal. The foreigners tribunal that is set up by the government. These people are going to these tribunals and submitting documents saying that there has been a mistake in the NRC and we belong to Assam only. Now, what has happened is that the state coordinator of NRC of Assam, that is Hitesh Dev Sarma, he has written to the foreigner tribunal and said that please don't give the decision on the basis of the NRC data. Why? Because he said that the NRC data that has come out is still not final. So please don't decide if a person is a foreigner or an Indian based on the NRC data. It is still in process and it is still ongoing. It is not the official data right now. The government is still working on revising this. So please don't decide this. On the other hand, the foreigner tribunal is saying that you don't interfere with our work. For us, the NRC data is official and we will go by this data only. On the other hand, the NRC coordinator says that the official NRC can only be published by the Registrar General of India, and the Registrar General has still not published the final NRC. So the NRC that we have in the public domain is just the first draft. Please don't depend on it. What also had happened was that these 19 lakh people who were not able to prove their citizenship, the government had said earlier that they will not be allowed to get Aadhaar card. Their biometric data was frozen by the government. But now government has unfrozen their data and has allowed these people also to get Aadhaar cards. So even today there is no complete clarity over what is happening with the NRC. Is the official NRC out, or is this NRC that is being published is still not official and the government will still change it? Now there are a lot of reasons why this NRC delay is happening, because the NRC exercise was completed few years back, but still the government is saying that this is not the official final NRC data. Now why is it? First point, as I said earlier, it is the responsibility of the Registrar General of India to issue the official notification of NRC, which has still not been done. Not just this, there are multiple cases of people going to the Supreme Court questioning the legality of the NRC and the process and how it was conducted. These cases have still not been heard in the Supreme Court. Many people have also demanded re-verification of the list, and that is also something that is pending. The CAG also has reported certain financial irregularities in this entire process, so there are question marks that are being raised on that as well. Because of all of this, the NRC data, which was so much in the news a few years back, has still not been officially released. Now the problem is, unless the Registrar General of India gives the final official notification of the NRC, the process cannot continue. As per the official process, after this official notification, NRC authority will give rejection slip to these people who have been excluded from the register, and then these are the people who will be allowed to appeal in the foreigners tribunal within 120 days of getting this slip. Only after that the tribunal can hear these cases. But now people are not waiting. Whoever's name is not there in the list, they are directly going to the foreigner tribunal and the tribunal is hearing these cases. And that is why there is still question marks over the implementation of the entire NRC exercise. The next article that we have here is on the problems of drought that India and other nations across the world are facing. This article is based on the recent UN report titled The Drought in Numbers. This report, that is Drought in Numbers, says that many parts of India are in the list of regions which are vulnerable to drought globally. India's GDP was cut down by 2 to 5% because of the severe droughts in the country, and the situation is the same across the world. The UN Convention to Combat Desertification, which held its COP15 very recently, because of which this article has been written, they have focused on the problems of desertification, land degradation and drought. The latest conference that was held of the UN Convention to Combat Desertification was on the theme Land, Life, Legacy from Scarcity to Prosperity. Now, as I said earlier, although this article is focused more on India, but this problem of desertification, drought and extreme climate events is a worldwide phenomenon. Between 2020 and 2022, 23 nations faced drought emergencies, including the US. Africa was by far the worst hit region. The other problem is that with all these climate change issues, women and girls are the ones which are impacted on a much higher scale as compared to men. Many of them in developing and least developed nations have to walk long distances just to fetch water, which makes them much more susceptible to these kind of issues. When there is drought in a region, they will have to walk much longer in order to get the water for the family. And the situation is not getting any better. As per the predictions, due to the global warming, there will be an increase of temperature by 3 degrees Celsius by 2100, and the drought losses can be 5 times higher than what they are today. The areas around the world which will be most affected by this are the Mediterranean and the Atlantic regions of Europe. But in India also, the situation is getting from bad to worse. We have erratic climate patterns now that we see. For example, look at Chennai. One year there will be so much shortage of water that offices will be closed across Chennai. And just a few months later, there will be so much rainfall in Chennai that you will have flooding in the city. So, all these erratic weather patterns are now being seen even in the biggest cities across the world, including India. The reason why this article has been written is because of the recent climate change summit that was a 15th session of the UN Convention to Combat Desertification. In this session, our Union Minister for Environment, Forest and Climate Change addressed this entire conference with the focus on desertification, degradation of land and drought. There are a lot of causes that lead to the problem of land degradation, which include the loss of soil cover, vegetation degradation, water erosion, wind erosion, and above all, the climate change. Realizing this potential, multiple initiatives have been taken across the world to combat this problem, including the UN Convention to Combat Desertification, which came up in 1994. This is the only convention of the UN with respect to the problem of desertification. We also have the Bonn Challenge, which includes efforts to bring 150 million hectares of world's deforested and degraded land into restoration by 2020 and increase that number to 350 million hectares by 2030. We also have the Great Green Wall Initiative by the Global Environment Facility, under which 11 nations in Saharan Africa have focused efforts to fight against land degradation. Now, this is what the entire world is doing. With respect to India also, the Indian government has realized the challenge that we are facing in terms of desertification and increasing instances of drought. That is why we are also making efforts to combat this problem. This includes focus on sustainable land and resource management and ensuring that there is much more local participation for productive use of land across the country. We also initiated the National Action Plan for Combating Desertification in 2001 to address the problems of desertification. Some of the other programs in this field by Indian government include the Integrated Watershed Management Program, the National Afforestation Program, the Soil Conservation in Catchment of River Valley Project. We also have the Soil Health Card Scheme, which informs the farmers what is the requirement of their respective soils so that they can use the appropriate variety and amount of fertilizers as they are required. We also have the Command Area Development and Water Management Program running across the country. All these efforts are being made to ensure that the problem of desertification is put to an end in India. These are the topics that we wanted to discuss from the Hindu newspaper today. Now, a couple of practice questions. Number one, why have the successive governments at the center delayed the delimitation of Lok Sabha seats in India for over half a decade? What problems has this delay led to? Second, assess the problem of desertification as being faced by nations worldwide. What steps have been taken to combat this problem in India? Both these questions have to be answered within 250 words each. Thank you so much for watching the video.